My boyfriend had a car accident, and I rushed to the hospital to see him in a great hurry. Ryan had his head wrapped in gauze. He, who had always been gentle and refined, got angry when he heard me say that I was his girlfriend. You're lying. What about Luna? I've only had one girlfriend in my life, and that's Luna. Luna? A name I'd never heard of before, yet my boyfriend kept claiming that she was his girlfriend. Ryan flew into a rage and grabbed a disposable paper cup on the table and threw it at me. I couldn't dodge in time, and the paper cup hit me on the head. The scalding hot tea, along with the tea leaves, trickled down my head. The area scalded by the tea was stinging painfully. I quickly bowed my head and closed my eyes, groping for the tissues in my backpack. Unable to see his expression, his roaring voice pierced my ears even more clearly. Where's Luna? I only have Luna as my girlfriend. Who the hell are you? You're fucking lying to me. Luna? Yvonne Luna? At this moment, I actually felt like laughing. Ryan had never sworn when he was with me before. He had always been gentle and refined. It was rare to see him like this now. I randomly crumpled the tissues I'd grabbed onto my head and looked at Ryan as calmly as I could. I don't know any Luna. Ryan, we've been in a relationship for 2 years, and we're supposed to get engaged next month. Engaged my ass. Get out. He grabbed the tissues on the table again and threw them at me. This time, I managed to dodge. I remembered that the day before yesterday, he walked me downstairs, carefully pinned up the hair by my ear, and looked at me tenderly. You go upstairs first. I'll watch you go. I lowered my eyes, clenched my palms, and tugged at my bag. You calm down first. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Even if we talk tomorrow, the result will be the same. I want Luna. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. Ryan hit his head and now he only remembers things from when he was 19. He doesn't even remember his colleagues in the lab now. He only remembers us people who've been with him since childhood. Travis, Ryan's childhood friend, said to me, 19 years old. I thought about how Ryan looked in the hospital with his emotions showing on his face, and then I thought about how he always had a faint smile on his face when he was with me. Ryan's 19th year seemed to have been a really good time. I looked up at the glass chandelier in the living room. The area on my forehead that had been scalded was burning painfully, and I felt suffocated. This chandelier was chosen by Ryan and me together. At that time, we thought it looked nice and stared at it for quite a few times. But because it was difficult to clean, in the end, I decided to choose a common and practical round light. Ryan stopped me and said very politely, why not choose the glass chandelier? We can hire someone to clean it. Or, I don't know if I have the honor to be the one to clean the chandelier. I was dazzled by the chandelier and only then managed to break free from my memories. I replied to Travis, it's okay. You don't need to apologize for him. He should focus on getting better. I'll handle everything. I'll go and ask for leave from his supervisor in the lab. For now, I'll also temporarily manage his company. When he gets better, I'll make him apologize to me in person. So what if he was 19? Now Ryan is already 28 years old, his ring finger is wearing a couple's ring that's the same as mine. The call wasn't hung up for a moment, and Travis hesitated. Sister-in-law, Luna is Ryan's first love. At that time, I interrupted him, I don't want to know about their past. You don't need to tell me either. All I know now is that in another month, Ryan and I will be engaged. What's the point of knowing? Ryan isn't in his right mind now. If I knew, I'd only torture myself by thinking about whether Ryan would treat me the way he treated Luna, whether Ryan would like Luna more, whether Ryan would still be thinking about Luna. I know I'm not that magnanimous. I don't want to be haunted by these ambiguous thoughts right now. Ryan and I still have a long way to go in the future. He'll have plenty of opportunities to give me enough sense of security and explain everything to me slowly. Get out. I told you, I don't know you. I had just walked into the hospital with a pot of chicken soup when Ryan immediately flew into a rage. Travis couldn't even stop him. I was a bit puzzled. He was chatting and laughing with Travis just a second ago, but the next second, he couldn't wait to pick up something and hit someone. Even if he didn't recognize me, he shouldn't have gotten this angry. Since I didn't understand, I asked out loud. Ryan's voice involuntarily softened a bit. You'd better get out. If Luna sees another woman making chicken soup for me, she'll probably start crying again. She's so hard to comfort. Her tears seemed to come for free. Although he sounded dislike, his eyes were full of tenderness. Travis saw this and slapped Ryan on the back, then started making small talk with me. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Ryan's not in his right mind now. You know that. Is this the chicken soup made by sister-in-law? Ryan has been bragging about it for a long time, saying that sister-in-law is a great cook. I'm going to have a good taste today. This was the first time I'd cooked. I didn't say anything and quietly handed the chicken soup to Travis, then sat down on the chair next to Ryan's hospital bed. You didn't act like this when you were with me, sister-in-law. The doctor said Ryan can't be stimulated. He needs to recover slowly. Travis was still holding the chicken soup I'd made. When I was making the chicken soup, I got a blister on my index finger from the edge of the casserole. I didn't even have time to deal with it in order to come to the hospital earlier. Now I don't know where it got rubbed, and the blister burst. The raised skin was touching the flesh, and it hurt like hell. How ironic. The fact that I was Ryan's girlfriend was the very thing that stimulated him. What could I do to avoid stimulating him? Find Luna? The next day, after I'd finished handling the work in Ryan's company, it was already evening when I went to see Ryan. The afterglow of the setting sun made the hospital corridor warm and orange-red, making the voices coming from the ward sound especially harsh. Ryan, have an apple. I just cut it. What else would you like to eat? Just tell me. When I pushed the door open and entered, the girl sitting next to Ryan was picking up a piece of apple with a toothpick and feeding it to Ryan. Ryan obediently bit it, with a faint smile on his face that I hadn't seen in these days. I stood at the door of the ward like an outsider, gripping the doorknob tightly. Finally, I called out in a daze, Ryan. Ryan's face changed. Before he could say anything, the girl sitting next to him had already stood up, smiling and greeting me. Hello, Director Sabrina. I'm Luna. I've been abroad all this time. Travis told me that Ryan had a car accident, and I just rushed back yesterday. Her smiling face, paired with long, straight black hair, looked neat and gentle. At this moment, she was subtly declaring war on me. But I've never liked talking too much to irrelevant people. I gave her a sideways glance and then turned my gaze back to Ryan. I took out the lunchbox while asking, how are you today? Before I could place the lunchbox steadily, Ryan quickly propped himself up and reached out to block it. During the pushing and shoving, the lunchbox tipped over on the table, splashing a mess of dirty dishwater. Luna exclaimed, feigning shock and shouting exaggeratedly, Ryan has always had a good temper. What's going on? I ignored her and placed the bag in my hand on the table, looking at Ryan. He suddenly became awkward at this moment, not looking at me at all. I didn't mean it just now. It's just that my girlfriend is back. It's not that I don't want to eat the food you made. He stopped halfway through, ruffled his hair twice, and said irritably, no, I just don't want to eating the food you made. Finally, he simply covered his eyes with the back of his hand. You can go now. Don't come to see me again. My girlfriend is Luna. Luna exclaimed at the right moment. Director Sabrina, I didn't expect this to happen. Weren't Ryan and you supposed to get engaged? I touched the couple's ring on my ring finger, and my forehead throbbed with a dull pain. Luna was still feigning surprise. How could Ryan say that I'm his girlfriend? Did he misunderstand something? Should I explain? I looked at her desperately trying to show off her superiority, and I just thought she was hypocritical and cheap. Someone like her was actually Ryan's first love. That means Ryan's taste at 19 wasn't really good. Maintaining my composure, I said the first sentence to Luna since I entered the ward. Miss Luna, I don't understand what you're jealous of me for. But now, please leave. I sat on a chair nearby, rubbing my temple. Ryan, what do you think about it? At this moment, he regained his rebellious look. Think about what? I don't even know you. You'd better get as far away from me as possible. I didn't listen to him. I unlocked my phone and scrolled to an album. I handed it to him with a bit of force. Look. Inside were the photos we'd taken during the 2 years of our relationship. There was the back view of him that I secretly took when we climbed the mountain to watch the sunrise together. There was also the side view of him wearing a bare apron and cooking porridge for me. And even there was a photo of us looking into the mirror when we went to try on wedding dresses together, our heads close together and smiling brightly. This was the last chance I was giving Ryan. Ryan casually swiped through a couple of photos, his face changed drastically, and then he threw the phone back into my arms. "Take it away quickly." I said. "I don't know you. Why should I be the one to bear all this?" I looked at his disgusted eyes and eyebrows, vainly trying to see the tenderness in his eyes when Ryan looked at me. No, the 19-year-old him didn't even know me at all. In fact, if I said a few more words about being his girlfriend, he would get angry and jump with rage. I bowed my head and rubbed the couple's ring, looking at the photos in my phone. The conversation stopped, and there was a moment of silence in the ward. I turned off my phone and didn't know what to do for a moment. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the overturned lunchbox beside the table, with the dishwater and soup dripping down the edge of the table. I stood up, took a few sheets of toilet paper, emptied my mind, and slowly wiped the dirt on the table. Even with the thick layers of toilet paper, the vegetable juice still seeped out, and soon my fingertips became sticky. My boss liked to take care of herself, especially her hands. Having been around her, I was more or less influenced and usually attached great importance to my own hands. When I came to my senses, I almost immediately took a tissue to wipe my fingertips. The wiping motion paused for a moment. Suddenly, I remembered that Ryan had held my hands before, pointing at the bottles and jars he bought, and said to me, "Sabrina, don't worry. I'll help you take care of your hands in the future." I threw the ball of paper into the trash can and subconsciously twisted my fingertips. They were still sticky. I suddenly felt a bit irritable and asked regardless, "What about these photos?" "Delete them. What else can be done?" "The doctor said it would take at most a month for you to recover your memory." "It's none of my business. Don't bother me." "What about the wedding?" "Cancel it." What a joke. I picked up my phone again, opened the photo album, and selected all and deleted them in one go. Then I took off the couple's ring on my ring finger and placed it on the table. "Okay, I see. 06, your wedding with Ryan is coming soon. You haven't told Mom how much the betrothal gift is. Look, how hard your brother works. As his elder sister, you should help him more. We've raised you with so much hardship just so that you can help your brother. Mom and Dad are getting old. You should take more care of your brother." When I got home and answered the phone, I was bombarded with a torrent of words before I could even open my mouth. The other side started enumerating the hardships of raising me for so many years. It completely blocked what I wanted to say. I opened my mouth but finally only replied to the other side, "Okay." After hanging up the phone, I opened the familiar account and skillfully transferred 10,000 yuan. Soon, it showed that the transfer had been received. One of the data was calculated wrong. How could such an intern-level mistake be made at this time? Grace, my immediate boss, was a person who dealt with business matters strictly. She never showed any mercy in work matters. But this was the first time she directly pointed out someone's mistake in front of so many people. I didn't have time to feel ashamed or angry. I quickly stood up and looked in the direction she pointed. Sure enough, there was an error in the data in the last column. Logically speaking, such a small problem shouldn't have occurred at all. Although I walked away neatly in front of Ryan that day, I had to admit that I had been affected by the mood these days. I opened my mouth to apologize. "President Grace, Grace waved her hand and casually reminded me, "Sit down. Don't bring personal emotions into work." I was stunned for a moment, and then I realized that Grace was a friend of Ryan's aunt. She should have already known from Ryan that we had canceled the wedding. Everyone at the desks was minding their own business, looking as if they didn't care at all. I replied, "Okay, I see." Just 2 minutes after I sat down, my phone showed, "Call from family." I was jotting down the key points that President Grace was talking about while pressing the phone off with my left hand. Less than 2 minutes later, another call came in. I looked up at President Grace and pressed the phone off again. Before I could even pick up my pen, a call from an unknown number came in. I had already guessed what was going on. It should be that my parents knew that Ryan and I had canceled the wedding. I simply flipped my phone over and planned to turn it off. I knew that these consecutive actions made me stand out among a group of colleagues who were seriously taking notes. But I didn't expect President Grace to directly tell me about it. Sabrina, go out and answer the phone. The meeting is almost over. I stood up, looked at the incoming call display, and apologized to the people in the room. Sorry, I'll go answer a call. I hid in the bathroom to answer the call. The person on the other end of the phone seemed to want to rush out through the phone. Sabrina, what's going on? You don't even like someone as good as Ryan? Is it your personality that makes him dislike you? I told you long ago to be more lively. Looking so serious all day long, what kind of look is that? How is your brother going to buy a house without the betrothal gift money? We've raised you for so long. Making mistakes one after another today, plus being scolded by my own mother without even asking, made me extremely irritable. I looked at the woman in the mirror of the wash basin. There were dark circles under my eyes, and my lips were chapped. I didn't look like a girl in her 20s at all. I was used to not competing or striving for anything. Why did everyone think that I really had no temper? Mom, if you like Ryan so much, then you go and marry him. I turned off my phone and transferred another 10,000 yuan to the family chat account. Soon, it showed that the transfer had been received. Looking at the received prompt on the other side, I remembered what they often said, you should take care of your brother. This sentence was like a curse that had trapped me firmly for more than 20 years. What did I like about Ryan? Maybe it was that he would gently say to me, Sabrina, you should take care of yourself first. Maybe it was that he would remind me to bring an umbrella, remember to eat, and not drink cold things. Maybe it was that from him I experienced a sense of belonging that I couldn't get from my parents. Thinking about it, I silently shed tears while leaning on the wash basin. When I came to my senses, looking at the woman in the mirror with a tear-stained face, I felt disgusted with myself and immediately turned on the faucet to wash my face. When I was wiping the water stains on my face, there was a noisy sound outside. It should be that the group meeting was over. I took a sheet of toilet paper and wiped my hands randomly. Just as I was about to leave, I heard the voices of two girls talking. What's wrong with Director Sabrina? She's making mistakes one after another, you don't know yet? It's all over the company that she was dumped by Ryan. Really? The company toilet is separated from the pantry by a wall, and it's not soundproof at all. I could hear their discussion clearly. Someone pushed the door of the toilet and came in. I turned my head to look and it was President Grace. Grace opened the faucet beside me, and the sound of running water rang out, but it still couldn't drown out the gossipy voices of the two people in the pantry. Really? I have Ryan in my WeChat moments. He announced his new girlfriend last week. They really look good together. That girl is so sweet and cute, not like Director Sabrina who always has a serious face. I felt a bit embarrassed and subconsciously apologized. Sorry, President Grace. Grace turned off the faucet, took out a tissue from her bag and carefully wiped her hands. Her movements were elegant and charming. She didn't answer me. She took out a lipstick from her bag and handed it to me. It's new. Touch up your makeup. I hadn't even applied sunscreen these 2 days. I was just about to refuse when Grace had already placed the lipstick on the wash basin. I had no choice but to pick it up and apply it to my lips in front of the mirror. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her take out a hand cream from her handbag and carefully apply it to her hands. A person nearly 50 years old could live so delicately and calmly. Looking at my sallow face in the mirror, I just felt ashamed of myself. The conversation in the pantry continued. It's not without reason that Director Sabrina was dumped. After all, which man could like such a cold person? Ha ha ha. Sorry, President Grace. Grace had already put her things back into her handbag and was checking her makeup in front of the mirror. What are you apologizing for, Sabrina? If I were you, I'd tear their mouths apart. 08 Sister Sabrina, don't daydream. The water is going to overflow. Henry said as he tapped on the water dispenser, pulling my wandering thoughts back. Henry, the intern, was arranged by Grace for me. He had a gentle personality, high emotional intelligence, and was meticulous in his work. I didn't quite understand what she meant by this arrangement. Was it to let me develop a good impression of another person so that I could concentrate on work? Sister Sabrina, don't daydream. Today we're going to your ex-boyfriend's company. We're the client. Grace told me to avenge you. Just focus on negotiating the contract. I'll take care of the rest. Henry said, smiling, revealing the small tiger teeth that were usually hidden behind his lips. When I entered the conference room, I saw Ryan at a glance. It has been 2 weeks since we last met. Now the gauze on his head is gone, and he is neatly dressed in a suit, but his face still has that defiant look of a child. When he saw me, his expression stiffened somewhat inexplicably. I shifted my gaze and saw Luna. She was wearing a skirt suit, sitting haughtily aside, with a faint smile on her lips. I carefully read the contract and finally replied, "Sorry, I can't sign this contract for the time being. I can get back to you after I return. If there is a clear notice from my superiors, I will inform you immediately." Everyone knows that this is just a polite way of saying that the contract negotiation has fallen through. The smile on Luna's face couldn't be maintained any longer, and she was the first to speak in a weak voice. "Director Sabrina, you can't bring personal grudges into work just because Ryan chose me. I closed the contract. How can you be so confident just because of your ignorance?" Haha. Henry laughed out loud and hooked his hand over the back of the sofa behind me. The distance was too intimate, and I was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, Ryan knocked over a water glass. Henry quickly gathered up the contract and leaned over to whisper, "President Grace was worried that you would be at a disadvantage. But I think she was really overthinking it." Henry's posture was so relaxed that it brought a faint smile to my lips too. "Sabrina, please consider it again. Our company really needs this project." It was Travis who spoke. Everyone present was familiar with the situation. They all knew about my engagement to Ryan and also about Ryan hitting his head. They were also the ones who, knowing full well that I still had an engagement with Ryan, brought Luna here and allowed Ryan to date Luna. "Sabrina, when Ryan recovers, your engagement will still stand. We will still be the closest people." As soon as Travis finished speaking, not only did Luna and Ryan's expressions change, but mine did too. Just one short sentence managed to humiliate 3 people present. "Ryan's childhood friend is really something." Henry stood up and said, "Your company is really..." I interrupted him and pulled him back to his seat. "When I was with Ryan, he first introduced me to Travis, saying that he was his brother since childhood. Although Travis dropped out of high school due to some issues, he had always encouraged Ryan to start a business and persevere in his research. The terms require my side to give an extra 10% interest. It seems to be Ryan's company thinking about it, but actually cutting off your own retreat. This childhood friend of his might not be as good as Ryan had described." "Sorry, I won't sign because the terms are unreasonable. When your President Ryan recovers his memory, he'll understand at a glance. I don't know why it's you guys I'm negotiating with. What happened to President Ryan's previous assistant?" I took the contract from Henry's hand and started to tidy it up. Luna looked aggrieved and said, "She was jealous of me and got fired. I'm Ryan's assistant now. Do you have any objections, Director Sabrina?" After tidying up the contract and putting the pen in my bag, I stood up and looked at Ryan, who had been silent all day. "It's a pity that the only person with a brain got fired." 09 Ha 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 ha, Sister Sabrina, are you implying that they have no brains? Henry had a low laugh threshold and couldn't stop laughing once we left the office. "I'm not implying, I'm stating it outright." Hearing this, he laughed even more ridiculously. I didn't understand what he found so funny and just crossed my arms, watching him until he calmed down. Teenagers do wear their expressions on their faces, and it's quite appealing. "Sabrina, Ryan's voice came from behind. I turned around and saw him running towards me in big strides. When he stopped in front of me, he was slightly out of breath. I was a bit dazed, thinking that he had recovered his memory. Hearing the voice, Henry immediately stopped laughing and stood up, blocking in front of me. "President Ryan, what do you want?" Ryan was slightly stunned and blurted out, "Who are you to Sabrina? Are you two dating?" It seemed that he hadn't recovered his memory yet. The adult Ryan wouldn't ask such a question. He would only test the water subtly. Henry was both angry and amused. "What's it to you?" Ryan ignored him and stared straight at me. "Sabrina, let's talk." I lowered my eyes and saw the couple's ring on his ring finger. I felt a surge of unknown fire inside. What did this mean? Didn't he make it clear enough in the hospital last time? I grabbed Henry and was about to leave when Ryan chased after us from behind. "Was our first meeting in a bookstore?" I subconsciously stopped in my tracks. During that time, I had just been promoted from a junior staff member to an assistant director. There were constant rumors in the office, and everyone looked at me with inquiring eyes when reporting work to me. Coincidentally, I was dealing with a difficult client at that time and couldn't close the contract for a long time. At a company dinner, a male colleague said in a teasing tone, "Let Director Sabrina have a drink with the client. Then this deal will be done." The bookstore that Ryan mentioned was the place I often went to during that period. It was a small bookstore, but there were quite a lot of people. There was a parrot on the counter, and the shop owner had taught it 2 sentences. Whenever someone teased it, it would say something completely unrelated. During that time, I stayed up several nights writing reports, weighing the pros and cons, and finally closed that project. I knew our company was reaching high, and I had a couple of extra drinks at the celebration banquet to show respect. The next day, it was still that male colleague who said righteously, "I should have asked Director Sabrina to have a few drinks with them earlier. Then I wouldn't have had to stay up all night." There was a strong sense of discrimination and male chauvinism in his words. Just 2 sentences reduced all my efforts and hardships over so many days to, "I had a few drinks with them." That night when I went to the bookstore to return the books, the parrot on the counter stared at me. I stared back at it, and suddenly it blurted out, "What's wrong with you?" Just that one short sentence suddenly broke me down. I couldn't control myself and wiped my tears while returning the books. I had borrowed too many books, and my tears were dropping onto the books one by one. "It's too hot today. Wipe your sweat." I took a tissue and used the motion of wiping my face to wipe my tears. When I looked up, I saw a guy in a white short-sleeved shirt teasing the parrot, stroking its feathers with his fingers and teaching it to say, "Wish you happy every day." This was how Ryan and I first met. His just right behavior warmed me up. I looked at Ryan, who had a bit of impatience on his face in front of me, and lowered my eyes. "It seems that our first meeting has nothing to do with you. Also, President Ryan, you can call me Director Sabrina." Sabrina alone is not very formal. One day later, Ryan changed his mobile phone number and added me. He started sending "good morning" and "good night" every day. I heard that he fired Luna, and Luna made a big fuss in his company for a long time, but he didn't show any sign of softening. I was teaching Henry to analyze data when a call came in. Ryan on the other end was polite and courteous. "Sabrina, I'd like to talk to you." I knew that he had recovered his memory, there was no need to talk. People should always look forward. Forget it. After hanging up the phone, I continued to teach Henry to analyze data. Henry, sitting on the chair and looking up at me, asked, "Has the ex-husband brother recovered his memory?" I looked at his teasing eyes and couldn't help but let out a smile too. "Yes. But I didn't expect Grace to find out about this so quickly." After lunch, she called me into her office. There was a glass of water by her hand. When she saw me come in, she looked up. "Your makeup looks good today." I was stunned for a moment, not knowing what to say. Deep down, I admired her. After getting divorced, she single-handedly managed such a large company. Now, nearing 50, she was still stylish. Grace picked up the glass of water by her hand and stood up. "Do you know why I found out so quickly?" She stood in front of me, looking at me. Because of Henry. 2008. I found him in a bar. Isn't he even gentler than Ryan? I was stunned on the spot, not knowing what to say, watching Grace take a sip of the water in her hand. Sabrina, I understand you. Coming from a family that favors boys over girls, you're especially attracted to gentle people. But Sabrina, you should know what you want. The Ryan family only allows women to stay at home to take care of their husbands and children. Ryan's mother and I were college classmates. We took different paths. I'm not saying I discriminate against those who return to family life. She's great too, and she's happy now. Sabrina, I'm old and have no children. The person I have the highest hopes for is you. Do you understand what I mean? I never believe that something like love can exist forever. I only believe in what I can hold in my hands. We should be of the same kind. 71. By the time I came out of the office, Henry was nowhere to be seen. Even the doll and water glass on his desk had disappeared. The empty desk made it seem as if he was just an illusion, existing briefly and then vanishing. Ryan started to court me. He sent me a bouquet of flowers every day without fail and waited for me to get off work downstairs at my company. It was all over the company that Ryan was passionately chasing after his wife, but I turned a blind eye and continued with my own affairs. Half a month passed like this. Ryan brought his company's team to visit in person to discuss the previous project. President Grace assigned this project to me. This time it was in my office. There was no Travis, no Luna. Ryan brought the few normal people in his company. I quickly glanced over the contract. The terms were normal this time, but I still put down the contract and said, "Sorry, I can't sign this contract for the time being." Why? We've already made a big concession. It was the assistant who had been fired by Ryan before. There are more suitable companies. Actually, that company didn't offer as big a concession as Ryan's company, but it was about the same. Ryan's company had many contracts ruined by Travis and Luna, and now they were short of funds. At this time, I just didn't want to help. Everyone, please leave. I want to talk to Sabrina. The people Ryan brought disappeared from the room in an instant. If President Ryan intends to play the emotional card, I can't handle that. Ryan was stunned for a moment and then looked at me and said, "Sabrina, is it necessary to make our relationship this bad?" My hand that was flipping through the book paused. He rubbed his forehead as if he was extremely tired. "I'm so tired. I've been running between the laboratory and the company these days. You also know the importance of this project. Don't be so temperamental. The wedding will go ahead as planned, next month. I know your mother likes me very much. After getting married, you can completely return to family life." His tone sounded like he was being condescending. I started to think about what I had been striving for all these years. Was it to be a housewife? Was it to find a gentle person to save me? Ryan rubbed his forehead twice. "Sabrina, I'm tired. I've given you enough face. Resign from this job quickly." I clenched the water glass tightly. Listening to Ryan's words, I suddenly remembered what Travis had said in the conference room that time. "Sabrina, when Ryan recovers, your engagement will still stand. We will still be the closest people." Ryan was still talking about how tired and sad he had been these days. I interrupted him. "Ryan, do you remember what Travis said in the office that time?" Ryan was stunned and looked at me. Finally, he murmured, "Yes. But I wasn't in my right mind at that time. I was in my rebellious teens. Women are meant to return to family life. Look, this is the person I chose. Gentleness and refinement can all be faked. The first instinctive reaction when facing problems is what one truly thinks. Perhaps things went too smoothly when I was with Ryan. Everything was arranged properly, and I had always been attached to his gentle behavior. Now that this has happened, it's like a sudden blow to me. I actually have no idea what Ryan really thinks in his heart. I fought my way out of a small town, out of a cramped family. Was it just to form another family? Of course not. Sorry, President Ryan. We have different views. Goodbye, and don't let the door hit you on the way out." Ryan suddenly got angry. He stood up and grabbed my wrist. "Sabrina, what do you mean? Where do you want me to put my face?" His furious look was the same as that of the 19-year-old Ryan in the hospital. So, no matter how much one pretends, one's true nature won't change. I couldn't break free and my face turned red. I think I've made myself clear enough. He tightened his grip on my wrist and glared at me. Who do you think you are? President Ryan. It was Grace. She easily pulled my wrist out of Ryan's still-dazed hand. She teased, President Ryan, just because the contract negotiation didn't go well doesn't mean you can bully my employee. Ryan looked at Grace and finally turned around and left. Sabrina, come and look. Isn't the Grace family glorious? I followed her gaze. The whole area of office buildings nearby was the result of Grace's hard work for half her life. Of course, it was glorious. Do you want to have it? I was stunned on the spot, my throat dry. Why me? Sabrina, did I not make myself clear last time? The person I have the highest hopes for has always been you. 12 At the group meeting the next day, Grace directly announced the new news. The company would be temporarily managed by me. She requested a vacation for herself. Everyone at the table clapped to congratulate me. I thanked them while meeting their gazes. It was still the same bathroom, still the gossip in the pantry. Look, Director Sabrina is really lucky. Why did the company suddenly let her manage it on a temporary basis? Who knows? She was just dumped by President Ryan, and then there was an intern. Now she's suddenly become our immediate boss. I leaned on the wash basin and looked at the woman in the mirror. There were no chapped lips, and the dark circles under my eyes were carefully covered up. I opened my bag, touched up my lipstick, and walked out. Zhou Jiang Shaoan, instead of gossiping about me here, you'd better correct a few more data. You'd better complete the task on time this time. Otherwise, I'm not sure if your names will be on the next layoff list. The two of them changed their expressions and bit their lips to respond. But when I walked out the door, they whispered curses. What's she so arrogant about? People like them are just like the man who attributed my promotion solely to, I had a drink with someone, back then. Time will prove everything. I don't bother to tear their mouths apart for people like them. Although it's only a temporary management, I still want to achieve something. Ryan went back to school to do academic research. He left his mess to the Ryan family's company. Recently, a small company has achieved good results, but it doesn't have enough funds. The Ryan family's company and this small company are in a stalemate, neither willing to budge. I want to snatch it. In the past, I wouldn't have even dared to think about competing with such an established company. But now, I have the Grace family behind me. Why not give it a try? After a week of high-pressure work, contacting the other company, enduring their initial humiliation, and changing the proposal several times, I finally negotiated the contract before the Ryan family's company. When Grace found out, she called me. There was a lot of noise on her end, but it couldn't drown out her voice. Sabrina, you have guts. Well done. On the day of signing the contract, the Ryan family's company also sent someone. When they saw it was me, they were extremely contemptuous. So it's you. A girl has such big ambitions. Aren't you afraid you can't handle it? I didn't answer. I just signed the contract and left. Summer rain is always sudden. It was clear skies in the afternoon, but by evening, it was as if the sky had been cut open and the rain poured down from the horizon. I received a call from my younger brother on the subway. It was noisy on the subway, but the sound on his end wasn't any quieter. Sister, did you send money to Mom again? If I hadn't come back on vacation, I wouldn't have known. I've told you so many times. Don't listen to what Mom and Dad say. I'll be able to earn money in the future. You're really something. You're making me so angry. I'm already in Senior 3. Can't you guys give me a break? Mom and Dad's ideas are so deeply ingrained that they can't be changed. Why are you, a new era woman, getting involved? Once a month, my brother's nagging arrives on time. I could even imagine my brother jumping with anger on his end. I held my phone and responded softly, yes, I know. It was noisy on my end, and he couldn't hear me clearly. He interrupted me angrily, don't talk. I can't hear you. Also, did you break up with my brother-in-law? Good for you. When he came to our house that time, what he said to me was all about how you should stay at home obediently. He wanted to brainwash me. No way. Sister, don't listen to what mom and dad say. Do what you want to do. I swiped my card to get out of the station. The rain was pounding on the umbrella, but my younger brother, who was nearly 10 years younger than me, was nagging even louder than the rain, each word hitting my heart. When I entered the corridor and the sensor light came on, I saw someone squatting in front of my door. His hair was wet from the rain and stuck to his forehead. With his puppy dog eyes, he saw me and called out in a daze, "Sister Sabrina." It was Henry. The corners of his clothes were wet from the rain and dripping water. I opened the door, sighed, and said to the person behind me, "Come in." Henry was sitting on the sofa wrapped in a blanket, holding the hot water I gave him in his hands and sipping it little by little. No one was talking, and there was a moment of silence in the room. I looked up at the circular chandelier on the ceiling and was the first to break the silence. "Did you come to see me for something?" Henry tightened his grip on the water glass and pursed his lips. "Sister Sabrina, I'm sorry for approaching you with an ulterior motive. That store is run by my relatives. My sister is seriously ill, and they've helped a lot, so I often go there to help." It wasn't 2,000 a day as President Grace offered. Instead, she would pay for all the medical expenses for my sister's follow-up treatment. My parents have had a hard time already, and I couldn't refuse. Henry buried his head in his knees as he spoke, his voice choked with sobs. I watched the teenager's protruding shoulder blades rise and fall as he began to speak incoherently. "Sometimes I'm so scared that when I open my eyes, my sister will be gone. I've been studying really hard, but the looks they give me are so unpleasant." I looked up at the newly replaced circular chandelier, waited for him to calm down, and then sighed and asked, "Why are you telling me all this?" Did he want me to understand his hardships? Did he want me to sponsor him? Did he want me to care about his sister? Henry lifted his head from the blanket, looking at me with red eyes. "Sister Sabrina, after I graduate, I'll enter the Grace family on my own merits. I hope you can continue to teach me the data analysis that we didn't finish last time. By the time you enter the company, you'll already know data analysis, and you won't need me to teach you." Henry buried his head back in the blanket. Grace was right. She and I were of the same kind. I don't believe in such intangible things as love. I thought of my brother's nagging and then of the way Henry had stood in front of me. "When you enter the company in the future, I can teach you something more difficult, as long as you want to learn." Henry looked up, his bright eyes staring at me. But there was one difference between me and Grace. I believe that love begets love. 13 The Ryan family began to be hostile to the Grace family. Before long, the Grace family lost 2 partners to them. At the Monday meeting, some veteran employees started to make sarcastic remarks. I printed out my resignation applications and placed them on their desks, and they immediately quieted down. Ryan called. "Sabrina, what are you trying to prove by being so stubborn? Do you really want to go against the Ryan family?" I was just about to hang up the phone when I heard a familiar voice on his end. "Ryan, I'm pregnant." I was stunned for a moment, then realized who the affected voice belonged to, and congratulations on the new arrival. Then I hung up the phone. The Grace family and the Ryan family were now completely at odds. Grace called. "What? Are you using the Grace family to take revenge?" I replied with a smile, "I want to make the Grace family even bigger and more glorious." Perhaps because the Ryan family thought they had a deep enough foundation, they began to frequently compete with the Grace family for projects and partners. Anyway, whatever the Grace family had their eye on or even just showed a hint of intention to sign, they would snatch it. I knew there was a mole in the Grace family. After losing 2 projects, I deliberately let it be known that the Grace family planned to sign a contract with a pharmaceutical group and enter the pharmaceutical industry, and that the company had been running at a loss for a long time and could be easily acquired. Sure enough, the next day my assistant informed me that the vice president of the Ryan family had flown to that small company overnight. The Ryan family had made their fortune in the tourism industry and now wanted to enter the pharmaceutical industry. Their ambition was really big. I packed my things that day and went to find an acquaintance. Following the address provided by my assistant, I arrived in the neighboring city. After taking many twists and turns, I finally found it just before the sun went down. It was an old and dilapidated neighborhood. I took 2 or 3 bodyguards and a couple and pushed open the door. The room was messy and dirty. I withdrew the foot that was about to step into the room, stood in the corridor, and ordered the bodyguards behind me, drag Luna out. People who work for money act quickly. In less than a minute, a woman was dragged out. Her hair was sticking to her head in strands. She was wearing a white dress, and the hem of the dress was stained with dried blood. She was really messy. The summer air was already muggy, and she smelled fishy and foul. The bodyguards lifted her head, and it was Luna. Looking at her in such a sorry state, I understood. How could the Ryan family possibly let a useless person into their family? To hit a snake, you strike it at 7-inch spot. Looking at her lifeless face, I said condescendingly, "Is the baby still there?" Luna was immediately provoked and waved her hands, shouting, "You bastards, I'll kill you all. You'll get what you deserve, Ryan. You'll die a horrible death," someone peeked out secretly. I winked at the couple standing behind me. They immediately rushed to Luna's side and began to cry loudly. "Daughter, how could you be so miserable? I told you not to go to the Ryan family. What could you do even if you were pregnant? Now look at you. The baby is gone. How pitiful. Ryan and his family are so cruel." I stood aside and watched them cry. When the corridor was completely covered by the night and people couldn't be seen clearly, and the neighbors who had been peeking secretly all closed their doors, I then said, "Stop crying. Take Luna away. There'll be more chances for you to cry later." They immediately stopped crying and stood up, saying meekly, "Director Sabrina, I'll double the price." I was going on a business trip to negotiate a contract, but not in the pharmaceutical industry. It was with a gossip company. The Ryan family dared to be so arrogant. Wasn't it because they relied on the relationship chain they had accumulated over the years? So I took the Luna incident as a starting point to expose all the Ryan family's private shady relationships to the public. I was going to uproot the Ryan family. After negotiating the contract, the next day I had someone throw Luna in the biggest shopping mall. She was shouting and screaming, and her parents were pulling her and crying. I sent the chat records between her and Ryan to another entertainment company and completely distanced the Grace family from this incident. That same day, these chat records and Ryan and Luna became trending topics. When the Ryan family realized something was wrong and tried to suppress the trending topics, the gossip company I had acquired came into play. It operated overnight, posting one piece of information after another. Although some people found out that I was Ryan's fiancée, marketing accounts are experts at distorting facts. They managed to portray Luna as a silly woman who was blindly in pursuit of love. And this image was the most relatable. When the topic was at its hottest, I personally stepped in to cry for Luna. Although I had an engagement with Ryan at that time, I could see that Miss Luna really liked him, so I stepped aside. I didn't expect this to happen. I had just congratulated Miss Luna on her pregnancy, and now her baby is gone. My words pushed the popularity to a new peak. But in less than half an hour, all the topics related to Luna were deleted. I curled my lips and almost immediately joined forces with other companies to release evidence of the Ryan family's years of oppressing other companies and their gray industries. I titled it, "The Truth About Luna." In just one night, the Ryan family's stock price plummeted. I gave this evidence to Luna's family and let them sue. "We're just ordinary people. You don't need to say anything. I'll hire the best lawyers. But we hardly took care of Luna. I'll increase the price 10 times. The couple in front of me exchanged a look and finally nodded. In less than half a month, most of the people in power in the Ryan family were arrested. The pharmaceutical company full of holes that the Ryan family had acquired became the last straw that broke the camel's back. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Not a single company was willing to cooperate with them. In less than half a year, the era of the Ryan family's dominance in the company came to an end. Grace returned overnight and sat in the office looking at me. Sabrina, you're amazing. I can have a good vacation now. I can rest assured with you in the company. I teased, no way, President Luna. If I get married and pregnant in the future, won't that exhaust me? Grace stopped smiling. Sabrina, you haven't thought it through clearly. No, I have. Even though I've met some bad people before, I won't lose the courage to love. Luna's parents weren't satisfied with the price we had initially negotiated. They threatened lawyer Zhang, whom I had hired to help them win the lawsuit, to come and talk to me. They wanted 20 times the price, or else they'd be ruthless and tell the truth. When lawyer Zhang came to see me, it was noon, and he invited me to lunch by the way. There was a mocking look on his face. Sabrina, they're really bold. I couldn't help but laugh too. Tell them that they can go ahead and sue. At worst, they won't get a penny. On the surface, this incident had nothing to do with the Luna family from start to finish. Even the deposit I gave them was in cash. If they sued, they'd not only have to collect evidence but also explain the source of such a large sum of money. Lawyer Zhang chose a Western restaurant. I didn't really like it, but I was too embarrassed to refuse his kindness. When I pushed open the door, someone grabbed me, his voice hoarse. Sabrina, help me. I turned around and it was Ryan. He was unshaven, and his clothes looked like they hadn't been changed for days. They were wrinkled and in a mess. When he suddenly saw lawyer Zhang beside me, his hand gripping my wrist suddenly tightened. Sabrina, it's you. How could you be so cruel? How could you be so cruel? He looked as if he couldn't accept it. He was tightly clutching my wrist. Lawyer Zhang, who was dressed neatly, saw Ryan's crazy state and hid inside the restaurant. I couldn't break free for a moment, so I waited for the bodyguards I had hired to come and restrain him. Soon the bodyguards came and pinned him to the ground. I rubbed my red wrist and slapped him. Next time we meet, remember to call me President Ryan. After that, I looked at the man hiding behind the glass door and said to him, the same goes for you. The sun was blazing, but I was used to enduring hardships. I turned back and planned to go to a small shop on the other side of the company to have a bowl of noodles. As I was walking, my phone rang. As soon as I answered it, a voice like firecrackers came through. Sister, I've finished the exams. I'll come to see you during the summer vacation. I'm finally done with the exams. I could vaguely hear my parents' voices on the other end. Don't bother your sister. She's usually busy enough. I don't care. I'm going to see my sister. Mom, let my brother come. I'll teach him to analyze reports. After that, there was a moment of silence on the other end. I then realized that it had been a long time since I last called home after our last unpleasant parting. Okay, Sabrina. I've saved all the money you transferred to me before. I'll let your brother bring it to you this time. Before I could say anything, my brother was shouting on the other end, okay. You've said that so many times already. When I passed by the company, I saw a familiar figure standing in front of the company notice board, holding an umbrella to shield from the sun. I hung up the phone and ran over. Sister Sabrina? Quick, let me share your umbrella. Let's go to that store we used to go to and have some noodles. Henry stared at me and then smiled again, showing his small tiger teeth. Okay. I hid under the umbrella, looking at the blinding sun, thinking to myself, from now on, every day will be a fine day.